I do have for you is stories, and I strongly believe in the power of stories, and that's what we're going to be starting with today. So many of you will have studied the story of Christmas Carol last year, and some of you may even have read it. But if you haven't, you'll know the story anyway, and we've got Scrooge here, a mean old miser, bar humbug, and over the course of the story, he learns the true meaning of Christmas. And there he is at the end. But more than being about Christmas, A Christmas Carol is really about how an individual sees himself in relation to everyone around him. At the beginning of the story, asked if he wants to help the poor, Scrooge says, "It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's." Now, he believes that he is responsible for himself alone and to himself alone, and that others are responsible for themselves alone too. And this became the dominant attitude of the 19th century, as social Darwinism suggested that every individual's job was to struggle against every other individual, that life was a zero-sum game. There's no such thing as society, Scrooge says later. Oh, sorry, I must have misread my notes. That actually comes not out of the mouth of Scrooge in 1843, but anyone know who said that? It was Margaret Thatcher, who was Prime Minister when I was growing up in 1987. And when I was at school, we, like you are today, were told that we were going to be the leaders of society. But there was no interest, really, in teaching us what that society was like. And that wasn't my school's fault. It was reacting instead to the narrative which has been dominant for perhaps 200 years now, which suggests that, as our friend Milton Friedman says, the only social responsibility of a business is to increase its profits. Now, if this is true, if this is accepted as true, then by implication, the only social responsibility of an individual is to buy, to consume, eventually to outcompete. And this is the water that we swim in, I think, in 2022. I'm sure you're desperate for me to get to the part where I tell you what innovation I can offer you that will allow you to be a leader of society like these great luminaries. Unfortunately, the innovation I'm talking about is mostly in your minds. It's a provocation to shift your perspectives on the world and to recognise your role in society. I do want you to be leaders of society, but to do that you need to be in society. Over and above being good consumers, I want you to be good citizens. And what is being a good citizen? For me, it's these three things. It's recognising that you are in society, you are not apart from it. Citizenship is not about being independent, but instead about being interdependent. To be a good citizen, you need to think not about doing things for other people, but instead doing things with other people. Now, as Yesh said, my job is Director of Partnerships, and to me, this is the core of that job, trying to teach you to be good citizens. And we need good citizens now more than ever, where 1/4 of children in Britain live in poverty. In Boreham Wood, by the way, 5 minutes away, it's closer to 1/2 of children who live in poverty. And poverty doesn't just mean not having any money. It also means not having any agency, not having any sense of control over your life, no sense of being able to change things and make things better, a sense of being excluded from society. And poverty is not just about not having money, and it is not simply solved by those of us who have money giving it to those who don't. Charity is wonderful, but it is not enough. Instead of giving money or things, you need to give yourself, your humanity, your imagination, your effort. Don't aim to give some of the advantages you have to society. Aim instead to be part of that society. And this is what Scrooge does. The story of A Christmas Carol is about learning to be a good citizen. And everyone, if you know, again, anything about A Christmas Carol, you will know that Scrooge buys his penniless assistant Cratchit and his family the biggest turkey in the shop, doing nice things for other people. That's great. But what he really gives them, and what he really gives society, is himself. These are the closing lines. He went to church and walked about the streets, and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything could give him so much happiness. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Now, Scrooge is, by the end, truly a citizen. I think this is a pretty good model of how to see the world. You might want to cut out patting children on the head. But otherwise, I think the message is this. Your path to being interesting, happy, is not to cut yourself off, living for yourself alone, but instead to become a citizen, doing with, not doing for. Thank you very much.